Well, hello everybody. So we are here today to talk about one of my absolute favorite things in the world, and that is Africa, and specifically it's Kilimanjaro. So many years ago, I had this like desire as a kid that one day I wanted to see Kilimanjaro, and then over time it kind of morphed from wanting to see Kilimanjaro to wanting to climb Kilimanjaro. And so I was with a bunch of friends. I was living in England at the time, and I was with a bunch of friends, and they also wanted to climb Kilimanjaro, and so we put together a trip, and like a bunch of crazy people, we headed off to Africa. And of course, we didn't know what we didn't know. You know, we got there with what we knew, and we did the best we could, and we ended up having an amazing and fantastic time. And at that stage of my life, I was already getting involved in public speaking and training and doing transformational work with people. And I had begun to realize that you know, a lot of these seminars and therapeutic techniques and coaching would often rely on metaphors like, board breaking or firewalking or something like that. And I think that's great. I think they're wonderful. What I recognized as I was climbing that mountain that day, that the mountain is the best metaphor in the world for life. It's just an outstanding metaphor for life, because truly in the space of the 5 to 7 days that one might spend climbing the mountain, every single emotion that they'll experience in a year, they'll have in that week. I mean, every up, every down, every elation, every depression, every celebrated view of the future to every disaster scenario you can imagine. You'll go through this like roller coaster of emotional experience. And as a result, it makes it a truly amazing, a truly life-changing process. And so when I came off the mountain, I decided that it was something I wanted to introduce my clients to. And so since then, I've run a number of trips where I've led groups of people between, say, 10 and 20 people and taken them to Kilimanjaro, spent a day in the classroom preparing ourselves mentally, and then heading up the mountain. And we have averaged a 90% success rate. In fact, one year we had 100% of our people get to the summit. That is not something that happens on a regular basis. It happens because we were really well prepared. We had done it a number of times, so we learned some things that were going to help. We had great logistics partners in the country. And so what this webinar really is about is, if you have a curiosity about climbing the mountain, if you're interested in it, if it's on your bucket list, well, what I want this session to be is an opportunity for you to find out what you need to find out in order to figure out, A, do you want to do it? And B, if you're going to do it, what can you do to make sure that your trip is as much fun as possible, is as safe as possible, and so that you learn the things that you really could learn while you're out there. Also, I've got some guests here, so I'm going to go through and introduce those people, or let them introduce themselves, actually. But the first one that I will introduce is Paul. So Paul is a good friend of mine, and we work on in some other areas together around our WildFit brand and that sort of stuff. And one day, Paul said to me, well, he's a type 1 diabetic, and he said, I'm going to go climb Kilimanjaro, which is obviously not, it's sort of contraindicated for type 1 diabetics. And he's saying that we want to do this event to raise lots of awareness. And so I said, well, look, if you've got, Paul, how many people do you have going up with you? Your whole group?
There's 19 with type 1, and I think there's 26 in total.
Right, so it's quite a sizable group. And I basically said to Paul, well, look, I'm happy to share anything I can to make the trip more fun and more safe. And so that's, I decided initially we do this webinar really just to support his team. And then we decided, so many people are asking me all the time, having led so many trips up the mountain for key distinctions, that I thought, well, just make this a public event. So that's why you guys are here. So that's Paul. And then, well, Paul, why don't you say hello?
Hello. So as you know, I'm Paul Coker. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 37 years ago, and I'm doing Kilimanjaro because I can.
Outstanding, Paul. Really great to have you here. The next person I'm going to introduce you to is Perry. Perry's a really good friend of Elise's and mine, and has been our brigade leader for our Kilimanjaro trips for a number of years. In fact, I had stopped doing them, and once you've done one yourself, you'll understand why I might have wanted to stop. It's hard. And so I had stopped doing them, and then Perry called me one day, and he's like, well, you have to do one more. You have to do one more. And I think we've done 2 or 3 more since he said you have to do one more. So he's a very persistent guy, and I'll let him say hello.
Hi, I'm Perry, and yeah, I think Eric's covered it all in terms of why I did Kilimanjaro, why he's doing it, and why we're doing it together. I wanted to do it and I really wanted to do it with Eric. And as he said, he'd already stopped doing it. And I thought, what would I have to do? I asked him, what would I have to do to get him to do it? And he said, you have to put together a certain number of people. And that was a challenge before the challenge, so I thought I'll make it happen. And I've not looked back since then. So I'm sure we'll see more later on.
Absolutely. It was absolutely a pleasure. I'm really glad that you did that, and I've really enjoyed our time together on the mountain. So now the other people there's only one more person that I'm going to introduce that I already know, and that's Jackie. So Jackie, it's so funny because Jackie is the least shy person that I know on the face of the earth, except with Google Hangouts. She's got this thing about turning off her camera. Now I have some theories about what she's doing when the camera is off, but that's for a whole nother webinar. So Jackie, say hello.
Hey everybody.
All right.
Hey Jackie.
Jackie has not yet climbed the mountain with us, but she's here because she may field any questions from the people that are not here in the webinar with us. And now the rest of you, I don't really know you, so I'm just going to say your name or the name of whoever's Google account you used to log in. And if you could just say hello and introduce yourself to everybody. So I'm going to start with Jenny.
Hello, yeah, I'm Jenny. I was going to be doing Kilimanjaro this June with all the other guys with type 1, but unfortunately my diabetes hasn't allowed me to anymore because it's a bit unstable, so I'm going to be doing it next June instead, so bring it on.
Well, Jenny, I didn't know that, and this is not by any stretch all I want to say is have a chat. I'm sure you already have, but have a chat with Paul about our WildFit program and the impact it's had on his blood sugar and his preparedness to climb the mountain. And that might help you in June. And alternatively, you may want to come with us one day. So keep that as an option for you. And where are you coming from, Jenny, right now?
Sorry?
And where are you coming to us from?
Where am I from?
Yeah, right now. Where's that?
I am from near Chester in England, so
cool.
In the northwest.
Excellent. Pleasure to have you, Jenny.
Thank you.
Chris.
Hi guys. Yeah, my name's Chris. I've got type 1 as well. I'll be going to Kili this year with 18 other people with type 1, including Paul and Peter. I work for JDRF, the charity that's actually putting on the trek. So I have a few responsibilities while I'm there as staff, supporter kind of champion. Nothing too demanding, hopefully, but yeah, I'm coming from London, live in London, work in London. So yeah, that's me.
Excellent. Glad to have you here, Chris. And then we've got Peter.
Well, hello guys. I'm Peter, and I've had type 1 diabetes for 58 years now. I'm the oldest of the group, and I've taken on this challenge really to show my gratitude for my very good health. I'm extremely lucky to be so healthy, and it's really my way of saying thank you. I'm a teacher, teach design and technology, and well, that's about right. That's me.
Excellent. All right, so I'm going to jump into the balance. I'm going to jump into a little talk about some basic things about Kilimanjaro, and then really we're just going to have a conversation. I'll take probably most of the questions from these guys here that are getting ready to do the climb imminently. And if you've got questions, pop them into the chat area, and we'll get to those as well, as best we can. In the meantime, in the right-hand sidebar, if you go over to the, I don't even know the name of the tab, it might be called Pop-ins. I am displaying a link that I'd love for you guys to click because it gives you an opportunity to support Paul's climb and the raising money for diabetes and all that kind of stuff. So the link is up there. If you click that, you go right through to his Just Giving site, and it'll tell you all about what they're doing and the awareness they're trying to raise. And so I'd really appreciate you could provide them some support. So let's talk a little bit about Kilimanjaro then, and then we'll go to sort of questions and discussion. There's a couple of things that are important to know about Kilimanjaro, and that is that there are three really core types of preparation that you need to do when you're getting ready to do the mountain. And this may sound very basic to you, but here they are. The one is you need to be physically prepared, and one of the core things about climbing that mountain, it is not something you do quickly. In fact, for those of you who don't speak Swahili, I guarantee you that there's some Swahili words that you will know by the end of this trip, and they are pole pole, which is to say slowly. your guides will constantly tell you to slow down, because the pace that you will want to walk up the mountain at is very different than the pace that they'll want you to walk up the mountain at. When I talk about this at live events, I show people by walking on the stage how slowly it is, and they can't believe that we really walk up that slowly. Walking slowly is a very, very vital part of a successful climb in the mountain. That does not, however, diminish your need for physical fitness and training. And I know a lot of you guys, I mean, you're only 3 weeks out or something, so you're already deep into your training. The core thing is that you make sure that you have a base level of physical fitness when you're climbing the mountain. Then the next consideration is that you understand your logistical requirements. So you've got a good partner in the country. I trust you guys already have that, of course, at this late stage. And also that you bring stuff. And what I mean is that most of the companies out there that are providing you a list of equipment, they're giving you kind of the generic list of equipment. In fact, the first time we went, we got this list that looked like it had been photocopied off a photocopy off a photocopy off another photocopy. And really what you want is a list that's getting updated all the time, so that it demonstrates that people are learning each time they go and adding stuff. For example, one of the things that I don't see on a lot of lists, although it's starting to appear, but I don't see on a lot of lists, is bring a hot water bottle. Guys, is that on your list? Any of the lists you guys have had? Paul, Chris, any of you guys?
No, it's not on our list.
No, bring a hot water bottle, and I'll tell you why. At night on the mountain, they will boil water in thermoses. Now, the higher up you get, the harder it is to boil water, but it'll still be hot water. And so what you'll want to do is empty that thermos into your hot water bottle, seal it up nice and tight, and throw it into your sleeping bag. Let me tell you right now, that one thing can make the difference. Absolutely worth doing. Take a good high quality, mind you, water bottle, because obviously you want to make sure that it'll hold its integrity. So bring yourself a water bottle. And that's what I mean about getting an equipment list from people that are constantly going through the learning cycles. In fact, Jackie, if we could make sure that all of Paul's team gets our list, I'd really like to make that happen. Anybody else who'd like to have our list, just make sure you write to us and let us know, and we'll get you a copy of it. Whether you're coming with us or doing your own climb, we'll make sure you get that. So that's the second area. And most people handle these first two areas. They know they have to be fit. They know they have to have equipment and logistics partners in the country and all that kind of stuff. The third area people don't really fully appreciate and don't really fully understand sometimes, and that is the mental preparation. And we'll talk a little bit about that today. One of the things, for example, I want to share with you is I have a question actually for you guys, all you guys that are climbing with Paul. Just by show of hands, how many of you think that it's more than likely that at some point on the climb you might want to give up? Okay, good, good. That shows a higher level of realism, because I am amazed at the number of people who set foot on the mountain, and they don't know that they're going to have that thought. And so one year we were running our program, and I don't know what made me say it, but I told them, I said, you guys are all going to want to give up at one point, every one of you. And there's some tough people. One guy came on our program. He had already done the marathon de Sable. 9 marathons in 7 days. He's a tough guy. And he's like, I'm not going to want to give up. And everybody's like, but what happened is that when we came down off the mountain, people said to me, what's fascinating is that I absolutely, a number of times, felt like giving up. But because you told me in advance that I was going to feel that way, I recognized it simply as a step. I realized that it was something I had to go through to get to the top. It was normal. I was like, oh, there's that feeling Eric told me about. Now I know what to do. Keep going. Now, let's talk about, I obviously don't mean to keep going in the face of all safety. Obviously, if your guides are telling you you're done, and that does happen, and it's random. I'm talking more about your own mental preparation. I have seen far more people lose the summit, like not make the summit, through lack of mental toughness than I have through altitude problems. Altitude problems exist. They're there. They can happen. It's just that if somebody doesn't have that core mental toughness, guess what? They're more susceptible to altitude problems, and they're more easily able to talk themselves out of going up the climb. So that mental preparation thing is a really big deal. Part of that, and listen, guys, this is so important, part of that is that you have to not only garner your energy and have a visualization or a belief in reaching the summit, you also need to see coming down. Like, you really, it's such an interesting thing that the way our bodies govern energy is that you may be going, I can make it to the top, I can make it to the top, I can make it to the top, and you force yourself to get to the top, but because you might not have given the consideration needed to the descent, that this is where you now have a problem, because the descent, while it's much faster, is a huge amount of work as well. And so as you're mentally preparing for it, and as you play out the itinerary, I really want you to do this. Like, visualize yourself at the top, but also visualize the day and a half of walking down so that your body knows it's coming. And that'll really help you with your mental preparation. So, in terms of the core things to pay attention to, it's really, when you're on the mountain, here's one thing I really want to stress for you. Decide what it means to you. Decide what it means to you. Like, what is the larger purpose of climbing this mountain? What's the metaphor? What's the lesson here? Because you see, for some people it might be, well, my big lesson in life is to have a beautiful family and have successful children, and somebody else's might be, well, I want to grow a big business, or somebody else wants to write a book or a movie or something. All of these things are mountains. They're all mountains. Just most of them are internal mountains. And now, for the first time, you're about to go deal with a real mountain, and so you can take one of these internal mountains and kind of create a metaphor so that as you're walking along, you go, I wonder, right now I kind of feel a little tired. Well, how am I going to respond when I feel tired while I'm writing my book, or while I'm starting my business, or while I'm running my family? And whatever tools you use to break through the tiredness, remember those tools, because those are the same tools you can use back in life. You see, one of the things that happens so much is when you're finished with the mountain, you come down afterward, and you go back to your life, and stuff happens, and you laugh at stuff. I laugh in the face of stuff, because you've just been on this mountain, and it's like you realize that there's twice as much oxygen in Surrey as there is on the top of Kilimanjaro. So it's like, why is this bothering me? So and the last thing I want to touch on before going to a more conversational tone here is one of the expressions that we have, because when we do this program, we're doing it as a leadership and team building exercise. So we take people up with a specific intention of teaching very specific lessons and so on. One of the all-encompassing rules that we create for the program is that it is all part of the plan. Everything that happens is part of the plan. And the reason I say this is that you don't climb a mountain because you think it's going to be easy. You don't climb the mountain because you want it to be easy. You're going there for a challenge. Now, you obviously would like to make that challenge as easy as possible, and recognize that if it wasn't a challenge, it wouldn't be a challenge. In other words, everything that happens is part of the plan. And so when things go wrong, right, quotes wrong, they're not wrong at all. It's part of the challenge that you've signed up for. And the weirdest thing is, by just accepting that one little truth, it makes the whole mountain much more digestible. It makes the whole process a lot better. And frankly, after the mountain, it makes life easier, because then when stuff goes wrong in life, you go, oh, it's all part of the plan. So that said about climbing the mountain, what I'd love to do is turn over to you guys. I mean, first of all, Perry, if there's anything you want to add in having climbed, I'm happy to do that. And if you guys at this point, you're what are you, like 19 or 20 days away from leaving? So, what's going on? What's in your head, and what questions do you have? Not everybody at once, because that's hard to manage.
There's nobody.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot. You guys are all English.
I'll throw something
for 10 years. We're going to have to get over that right now.
I'll throw something in.
Go ahead.
Eric said about having a why, and just I think a mantra. And if you can figure the mantra out now, and I'll share with you what one of mine was, and the reason why it came about. I've climbed the mountain twice, and on both occasions I've been hit seriously by, I'll just term it altitude sickness, however it's manifested itself. And the first time I really was close to quitting, and not because I wanted to quit, but just because I was completely immobilized, and I was suffering for 2 days non-stop. And the mantra in my head, as well as obviously the team dynamics, I can say the mantra really helped me a lot. And I had two of them, and one of them was every step I take, I'm getting stronger. The higher up I go, the easier it's becoming, or the easier it gets. And the reason why I had those mantras is literally because I was the first in the group, the first group that I went with, to catch any kind of illness. And I think there was a time when I think I was just minutes, maybe hours away from somebody putting time on me. And I can say that that self-talk literally tipped my body over the edge of whether I made it or not. So mantras are really important if you can figure one out before you go. fine, and you can start using it from the moment you step foot on the mountain.
Yeah, if I can chime in on that, Perry, thank you so much for bringing that up. I read this story years ago about Elvis Presley, and I tell this story quite often when I'm teaching public speaking, is that he would always set up his changing room so that it was 1,000 steps away from the stage. And the reason is that he would use those 1,000 steps to charge himself up. He would use mantras like, every step I take, I get stronger and stronger. And I know this sounds kind of like very 80s, positive thinking type stuff. Well, there's a reason that it works. There's a reason that people keep repeating is that it works. And so what Perry's talking about is developing for yourself a mantra that, when you're standing on the mountain, you're walking up the mountain, just saying to yourself, every step that I take, I get stronger and stronger. One of my favorite ones is, the higher I go, the higher I get. The higher I go, the higher I get. And it's just because it starts to feel good, and so those mantras can actually really, and I'll tell you that, forget about the metaphysical impact of mantras. Let's leave that alone. Let's just talk about the practical impact of a mantra. You can only have so much self-dialogue. So if you're so busy going, the higher I get, the higher I go, the higher I get. With every step I take, I get stronger and stronger. Well, as long as you keep saying that to yourself, you can't say stuff like, oh, this sucks. Oh, man, is it ever cold? Oh, God, I'm going to give up. Oh, I'm so hungry. I'm so cold. Because you've kind of forced this other mantra and dialogue in, which has a tremendous impact on your energy. So, Perry, thank you so much. That's such a valuable bit of input. All right, questions. And here, I'm making the English joke, of course. It's not just an English thing. It's a hangout thing. If you haven't done lots of hangouts, then being the first one to speak up turns everybody English. So here's what's going to happen. If you don't raise your hand and volunteer yourself, I'm just going to randomly pick you anyway. So think how much better it'll look if you kind of just step up on your own with your own question. You must have questions. Think about this. You're 3 weeks away from stepping foot on the tallest freestanding mountain in the world. You're going to walk to nearly 20,000 feet of altitude, and you're talking to some people here who have done it before. Perhaps you should ask some questions.
You put us on the spot there.
All right, Peter, you go.
Can I start it off?
Yes.
I think probably one of my biggest worries is the effects of altitude sickness. When it starts to hit you, I mean, do you get very, very short of breath? Are you breathing quickly? How does it manifest itself?
Sorry,
yeah, that's really interesting. It manifests in people in different ways. The most common thing is headaches. That people get anything from mild to severe headaches. That's really common. And the other common thing is belly upset. So where your stomach's just not feeling right. You either don't feel hungry or you get the runs or something like that. Those are sort of common initial indications of your body just not totally being happy with the experience. Obviously, they can get more severe, like really truly running out of energy and that kind of stuff. And here's the beauty that you need to know: the guys that you're climbing with on any of the logistics companies you're using, they are climbing that mountain on like a weekly or certainly often multiple times a month basis. And so they recognize altitude sickness really easily. And so if they're telling you you're okay, no matter what your body is telling you, you're probably okay. But equally, if they're telling you you're not okay, then no matter what your mind is telling you, you're not okay. And that's really the gauge, is you want to rely on your guides for that conversation. One of the ways that they'll actually do it, it's a little bit like boxers in the ring. They'll walk up to you, grab your arms, like they do with the boxers, to see if they're still kind of there, and test your strength and say, hey, how you doing? And your answer back, the way you talk. I mean, if you're slurring your speech, here's a really easy way to see if somebody's getting early stage altitude sickness. They start acting a little bit drunk. They're a little wobbly on their feet, and they're slurring their words and that kind of stuff. And those are some of the indications that somebody's developing some altitude challenges.
That sounds like hyperglycemia, Eric.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, good. Well, it's always good if there's a little confusion about what's really going on. The good news is that pretty much as soon as you turn around and start going back down again, the symptoms generally abate pretty immediately. In fact, a lot of times what you need to do is just simply sit down. Just sit down and have a rest and let your body acclimatize. The other thing is that drink a colossal amount of water. Like take whatever you think a lot of water is, and then drink more than that. And then whatever that amount is, drink more than that. Like, you want to be drinking the entire time, constantly drinking. That will absolutely mitigate or help with altitude challenges. And you guys need to do that more than a lot of other people, and here's why. Because you're going up what's referred to as the Coca-Cola route. And the Coca-Cola route is a fairly intensive route for altitude gain. And so you need to pay a little bit more attention to pole, walk slowly. You need to make sure you're drinking a lot of water. And if they offer you, Paul, I'm sure you guys are doing an acclimatization day.
Yes.
Yeah.
You will be tempted to opt out of the acclimatization day because you'll be like, I'm back at camp. I don't feel like going for another walk. Take the acclimatization day, because what they're going to do is walk you up a high altitude and then walk you back down to camp so that your body starts acclimatizing better. So, thank you, Peter.
I was just can I just add something to that?
Of course.
For Peter. So the first time I did it, I literally talked myself into altitude sickness because I told myself that I'd been the most muscular person in our group, and I'd read somewhere that the more muscular you are, the more susceptible you are to altitude. But of course, that could also be that I'd prepared myself in a way that it was going to happen. Not that I prepared myself for it to happen, but I manifested it, so to speak. So whilst it's helpful to do due diligence and to be prepared for it, try not to tell yourself that don't worry about it, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Prepare yourself as best you can, and know that you're in very good hands in terms of the logistics company you guys are going with on the ground, and they will support you in whichever way they can to make sure you don't get it. It will happen, as Eric said, in different forms, and it'll be different effects to different people. And I would say that I've gone through it in all the different variations, or most of it anyway. And when altitude sickness comes on, it will pass, unless, of course, you're suffering a bigger drama related to something else. It's just, it happens while your body's trying to adjust to the introduction of altitude or the reduction in air.
Yeah, Harry, that's a really good point you've just made, and this is really key for all of you, is that what happens if you do start to feel a little bit altitude sickness? Humans are funny. We're really trajectory oriented. What I mean is that if we feel 7 out of 10 now, and then we feel 6 out of 10, and then we feel 5 out of 10, how are we going to feel in 10 minutes? How?
4 out of 10.
4 out of 10? No,
and then in another 10 minutes?
3 out of 10.
Right, but you see, that's how we think. We think in trajectories. We think we spot patterns, and we assume it's going to be that way. Let me tell you something, and Perry was such a great example of this. There was one trip where I actually have a photograph of Perry. He's wearing this red giant parka, huge red parka, and you can't even see him because the hood's pulled over like this, and he's sitting at the table, and there's no Perry. It's like a former Perry. He's just not even there. And if you're plotting trajectories, you would say that by the next day he wouldn't even be at the meal table. There came a moment where it lifted, and then all of a sudden Perry was back. And so I'm going to describe to you how somebody can create challenges for themselves and how they can undo them. Here's how you create them. You start asking questions like, I wonder if I'm getting altitude sickness. I wonder if there's enough air up here. I wonder why I'm so cold. Was that a headache I just felt? Did I just feel a little headache? If that's a headache, do I have altitude sickness? If I have a little altitude sickness, I'm going to headache. Wait, is my headache getting worse? And you start having this dialogue. And that dialogue activates a part of your brain that starts looking for evidence to support the theory that you have altitude sickness. And so it becomes a loop of dialogue that you have altitude sickness. Instead, you kill the dialogue and you say, with every step I take, I'm getting stronger and stronger. The higher I go, the higher I get. Now, imagine you end up on the negative loop and you end up with some altitude sickness. You can use that same mechanism to undo it. You start going, does my head feel just a little better now than it did 10 minutes ago? Does my head feel just a little bit better now than it? Am I a little warmer now? Do I feel just a little bit stronger now than I did a little bit? And you start looking for the turnaround because the turnaround does come. And I figure if you start looking for it, you can bring it on sooner. So Perry, thank you so much for that additional feedback. Well done. Who is next?
Eric, on the same matter, it's a controversial subject, but prophylactic Diamox or not?
I've never used it. I'm not an advocate of it. I don't like it, and I certainly don't like it prophylactically. Now, I feel the same way. Why don't we deal with malaria at the same time? You guys are probably asking questions about malaria as well. The challenge I have with both anti-malarials and with Diamox is that both of those things have the potential of masking the symptoms of the very thing that you're trying to protect yourself from. So you take the prophylactic, and then you mask the symptoms, and then you don't know you've got the problem. So I am not a big fan. It's not my favorite idea. The guides will always bring it, and then one day, if they feel like you're having altitude problems, they will offer it to you. Some people think you should take it in advance. I just am not in that camp. I've never done it, not on any of my trips, and I've never advocated it for any of our people. And I've had altitude problems from time to time, and it's always turned the corner. So no, Paul, I'm not a fan. I'm generally not pretty. I'm not a fan of pretty much any pharmaceuticals anyway. But in this case, in particular, I feel like even when I got altitude problems, I didn't take it. But if I were going to take it, here's the circumstance. You want to know if there was one time I might take it, and I haven't yet, and I doubt I ever will, is if I was like within 200 feet of the summit, and I just wanted to get that last little bit of the way, and I felt like I couldn't, then maybe then. But I certainly, if I'm like 2 days left in the climb, I just keep walking. I drink more water, pole pole. More water, pole pole. The higher I go, the higher I get.
Thank you.
Who's next? See, Thea's just fixing her hair, but we're going to pick on her anyway. Thea, if you don't have a question, think of one. But in the meantime, why are you climbing? Tell us a little bit about that, because we didn't get an introduction from you earlier.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry I'm late. I have my kids with me. Right there.
Excellent.
So, really excited to hear everyone's accent, just as am I.
Cool. And you're going with the group in 3 weeks? Oh, I think maybe we lost Thea. How about you, Chris? Any questions on your side?
Yeah, I think just touching on something that you mentioned earlier on about it being the Coca-Cola route. It sounds like it's quite a touristy route, or it originally was quite a popular route. I think when we first signed up, I might have made this up, but I'm sure they told us it was the easiest route, and that's why they picked it. But then the more I read, it seems like it isn't the easiest route anymore. It's actually quite a demanding route.
Do you want the truth, or do you want to hear something that's going to help you feel better?
I want the truth.
Oh, damn it. Damn it.
Unless everyone else wants to lie. I mean, what does everyone else want to hear?
The Coca-Cola route is absolutely the easiest route up the mountain for the guides. It is. It's the easiest way up the mountain for the guiding companies because it's a fixed trail. There's no navigation involved. There are huts along the way. There are camps where you can go get dinner from. There's places to buy water. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like there's a 7-Eleven on the street corner, right? But it's a much more established route, and so from a logistics perspective, for example, there are loos and washrooms and stuff on that route because you'll stop at Harumbo. You know what? I don't know what your guys are bringing, but one of the things we tell our people, and if anybody who is wanting to climb the mountain independently, make sure your tour company brings their own portaloos. You do not want to use the ones that are on the mountain. Trust me on this. And so it's for that reason that they view the Coca-Cola route as being logistically easier for them. In terms of actual climbing, frankly, unfortunately, because the ascent is quite rapid, there's a marked increase in the likelihood of altitude sickness, especially if you try to go too quickly, and that's why pole all the way. We modified our route a number of years ago. We now take a route that starts at the backside of the mountain on the Kenyan side, and we come up that way, and we've had a significant reduction in the level of altitude sickness. So I know it's probably not the best thing I could say to you at the moment, but here's the thing. Sometimes it's important to know the weaknesses with your current strategy so that you can mitigate. So, that means you're going to just need to really make sure you're drinking a ton of water and you're really going slowly, and that you take the advantage of the altitude day.
Can I chip in one more thing that you just triggered there? So on our treks, we try to make a religion of the water drinking process.
Yeah.
That we have a trigger word. Do you want to pick that up?
Well, yeah, it's kind of funny because it started really on my very first Kilimanjaro trip. those of you that are in England, I lived in England for about 10 years, and you will remember they had these commercials. I don't really understand the point of them, but like this guy would, a bunch of people would be playing soccer or football, sorry, and then somebody would come along, run up, and he'd kick the ball, and he'd go, "Have it!" Do you guys remember these?
Have it.
Have it. Anyway, it was just this English commercial. Well, we got into this routine where anytime somebody said "have it," then you had to take a drink of water. And then years later we did the trip, and now we were running them as leadership programs, and we realized we wanted to create something like that. Now, how many of you guys are familiar with Father Ted? You guys remember Father Ted?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Father Ted, well, you remember Jack and Father Ted. Now, those of you who are not from England, I'm sorry, you're going to be lost here for a minute, but there was a Father Ted was a show about a bunch of Catholic Irish priests living in some tiny, what was the name of that town? I can't remember.
No idea.
Some tiny little town, and there was one of the priests named Jack, and Jack was a complete alcoholic, and I think he only spoke 2 words, and one of them was drink, and he would drink, and so we got into this routine on the mountain where if anybody did that Jack impersonation, if anybody said drink, then everybody had to drink up, and then the last one was Perry's doing. What was yours? It was I love.
I was basically, sometimes when you put me in nature, I'm like a child. In the sense that I'm quite amazed and fascinated by pretty much everything. And when you go to Africa, you will find that. So the people in the group just noticed that every corner we turned, it was like, wow, that's amazing. So it's amazing views and amazing this and that. So amazing was our trigger word.
And why that worked so well is that our other words were words that were designed that if you were taking a drink, if you were taking a drink, you had to say drink, and it would remind everybody else to do it. The challenge was that if nobody took a drink, then nobody remembered. What was beautiful about the way Perry did it was that you couldn't help it. I mean, you'd be walking along, and I'll tell you right now, there'll come a moment where you come up over a crest, and you suddenly realize you've walked above the clouds, and you're going to go, "Oh my God, it's amazing!" And then everybody goes, "Amazing, amazing, amazing!" And everybody has to have a drink. And so every time somebody says the word amazing, it would mean, and after a while you're like, if Perry spots one more amazing thing, I'm going to kick his butt. But it's a nice game to play with your team because it really does remind you to drink, and you need it. You will not feel thirsty. You will often feel thirsty, but you want to drink even when you're not feeling thirsty.
I can imagine the word diabetes will come up quite a lot on our treks, so maybe that could be our trigger word.
Yeah, that will get you waterlogged. That's a good one.
Is that an empowering word, though?
Yeah, I like that one. All right, who's next? Jenny, do you have a question for us?
Yeah, well, everyone's talking about your water freezes on summit night, so I'm wondering how you can stop it from freezing. People kind of say all different sorts of things, get an insulated camelback and the tubing, get a cover for it and stuff, but what is the best option to stop it from freezing?
Jenny, this is a really, really important question, and it's so vital. In fact, our experience is, frankly, the tour companies tell you this stuff, and they tell it to you once you're on the mountain. I got to tell you, you need to know now that it's going to happen so that you're really fully prepared for it. What's going to happen is that you absolutely want to have one of those, platypus or camelbacks. You absolutely want one of those on the mountain. No question about it. Don't let anybody talk you out of it. You must have one. It's because there will be times when you're feeling so tired that to take out a bottle and take the lid off and drink is just stop you from drinking. So you want the camelback so that you can just simply have it in your mouth and just pull on it whenever you want to drink. So you absolutely have to have one. Trouble is, on summit night, that tube is going to freeze. I don't care how much insulation you wrap around it. So what you want to do is, first of all, make sure you do get an insulated pipe. It's a good idea to have an insulated pipe. Here's the absolutely important two things, guys. If you don't hear anything else I say today, these 2 things. Are you ready? Blow the water back up the pipe. Blow the water back up the pipe. So you've taken it, then you blow it up. Here's the problem. You will be out of breath because there's so little oxygen up there that to and blow it out is actually not easy. I don't care. Blow the water back up the pipe. You know what? I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. I suggest it's a very good book to read before you climb Kilimanjaro. Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl was a Jewish a psychologist, and he was taken off to the death camps, and it was an unpleasant story, but there's a lot to be learned from it. And one of the things that he noticed is that if the other prisoners started smoking their cigarettes, they would die soon afterward. Not because the cigarettes killed them, but because cigarettes were currency in the camp. The fact that somebody was smoking their cigarettes indicated that they weren't planning to live anymore, and they would always die within a few weeks. Well, I can tell you that when somebody is not going, if they've given up, they stop blowing the water up their pipe, because what's going to happen is within about 20 minutes, the water's going to freeze in their pipe, and then they're not going to have water. And that's going to be a pretty big problem. I hope I've nailed this issue for you. I hope that any temptation you have to not blow the water back down the pipe is gone. You must blow the water back up the pipe. That's item number 1. Item number 2, you absolutely want to have a cig bottle, another cig bottle that is full of water that you keep inside your outer layer in case your pipe freezes over, so that you do have a backup supply of water. You must have that, because the odds are you can blow the water down your pipe all you like. The odds are still that it's going to freeze at some stage. And I have arrived at the very top of the mountain. It's happened to me. I've arrived at the very top of the mountain, and my pipe's frozen solid. Can't get anything out of it. And I have no other water. And I'm at the very top of the mountain. And now I've got a very, very long descent in front of me with no water. It was awful. It was really not nice. So you want to have that spare cig bottle full of water in case your pipe freezes. Great question. Great question, Jenny. Thank you.
Sorry, but won't the cig bottle freeze as well? Won't the water in there freeze too?
Inside your outer layer.
Okay.
Inside your outer layer. You keep it, like if you're wearing several layers, you keep it inside your outer layer.
Right, okay.
Another thing, we've got to keep all our insulin in our close to our bodies so that doesn't freeze up, and the blood test meters as well. We're going to look like Michelin men, I think. So
well, and the same with your iPod, because here's another great tip. I take 2 iPods with me when I go on the mountain. One that I use at night, because sometimes it's nice to have some meditative music to sleep to at night, especially because other people are, let's just say air is escaping from various parts of their body. And so having an iPod to tune that sound out can be quite soothing, really. The challenge, of course, is that you want a full battery. You want a full battery when it's time for you to do the summit. Because what I like to do is put together like a solid 8-hour power clip of the best music that would get me up to the top and listen to that all the way up that day. So that iPod, you don't use it at all during the until summit night with a full battery. And you want to do the best you can to keep it warm, like keep it beside you, because because cold will kill the batteries. So you're right. You're going to be like a walking thermos of stuff.
Can I just add something which is slightly related, but not exactly the same thing? As you go from base camp towards the summit, probably even before summit night, your guides would offer to help you carry some of your the things you're carrying with you in your day sack. On summit night, however, and especially on summit night, they'd want to help you. Can you make sure that all of your layers that you need for summit are readily available to you? And if I tell you what happened to me, one of the guides, the closest guide to me, offered to carry my bag, and he did. But the thing is, at that point, I didn't have a need for my wind stopper. And as we progressed up the summit night, I got separated from him, and the weather got very, very rough. The wind just became very, very aggressive, and I was desperate for my wind stopper, without which I was just losing body heat. So just try to make sure before you go for summit, please write this down, be aware of the fact that, because you'll have layers and you won't need all of those layers until later on in the summit process. So please make sure that you're close to all of your layers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and also there's another really important thing that's related to that whole topic. That is, your porters are going to carry your stuff. And so first thing is don't overload them. In other words, leave the kitchen sink at home. Really bring the stuff you need to bring and don't get excessive. And in fact, they'll weigh the bags. They won't let you do that. The other thing is that you're going to have a day pack with you. And here's what people do with their day packs. So I want to save you this process. Here's what people do with their day packs. And I can't remember if women or men do this most. It's definitely one of them, but I'm not going to say. But one of them does this most, is that they pack a ton of stuff into the day pack. Like, I might need these, and I might need some of that, and I might need some of these, and I might need some of that. And it's all stuff that's very reasonable to carry at sea level. You could carry it for a 10-mile walk, no problem. Everything will weigh 4 times as much on the mountain. And so it's really key that you are only taking stuff in your day pack that you are going to need, or is it for your safety. But otherwise, you'll leave it behind. Like, I couldn't believe it. We had somebody on our first trip climbing up, and they were like day 3, and they're already flagging and really struggling. So I was like, well, grab a seat, and I went to take his day pack off his back so I could let him have a seat, and I couldn't lift the thing. And so I opened it up, and inside there he's got like he's got his iPod, but external speakers, in case he wants some music. And he had a book. Honest to goodness, man. I mean, it was the stuff I clear out of there. It was phenomenal. I mean, it was a huge amount of stuff. So your day pack is only for stuff that you're really going to need. And I'll tell you what some of those things are. It's your water. It's snacks. It's layers. And in your guys' cases, it's any equipment or stuff relative to diabetes. And that's it. I mean, really, anything else that you add in there, like, it's not your Malone Balonics, it's not your iPhone. I mean, okay, maybe you want to bring your iPhone because unfortunately you can text from the mountain. It's just you want to be very gentle about what you're putting in that day pack because it will get heavier and heavier by the day. And Perry's absolutely right. If you do end up handing off a piece of equipment to one of the guides, bear in mind to keep an eye on that guide because that guide is keeping an eye on quite a few people, not just you. So you don't want to get too separated from your stuff. All right.
I have another question.
Yes, Chris.
On summit night, what would you advise the best jacket to wear? Because I've bought a Gore-Tex jacket, quite a good Gore-Tex jacket. I've spent quite a lot of money on it, and it's a very good jacket. And I'll obviously have numerous layers, including thermals, base layer. Would you advise getting a down jacket as well, just for that summit night?
Chris, it's kind of a matter of this is where the Boy Scouts really come in. Like, always be prepared. So for you to ask what jacket you're going to want to use on summit night, it's actually you don't know. Like, I have pictures of me on the summit wearing shorts. I do. I have a photograph of my first summit. I'm standing up. I have long long whatever you call them, long johns. Long johns. But I've taken the legs off my shorts off my pants because I was just too hot. So I'm up at the top in shorts. I've never had that happen since, not once. So I'm not suggesting that you're going to be standing at the top in shorts. So it is a matter of preparation. And one of the keys is layers. Like, I've seen people think, I have the kick-ass jacket. I've got the coat of all coats. I could survive a trip to the North Pole with this coat. That's not the right coat. It is the right coat for the North Pole because on your way to the North Pole, temperatures are going to be pretty consistent. I'll tell you what they're going to be. Cold, snowing, and more cold, and wind, and more cold. And so you better just have the coat of all coats. The problem on Kilimanjaro is that you're going to start off in shorts, no kidding, and then all of a sudden you're going to be in the forest, and it's like, woo, it's a little chilly here in the forest. And you're going to come out of the forest and you go, God, it's really hot again. And then you're going to go, and it's going to keep varying like that. And so the really key thing is that you are ready on summit night for absolute layers. As it turns out, the last time I summited, I had a really gorgeous, really nice Gore-Tex jacket, and then I had an over shell that could go over top of that for wind. And as it turned out, that it was mild enough that I actually gave my jacket to my wife because she was cold, so she wore my jacket on top of all her stuff, and I was fine without it. So it's really, unfortunately, not a great answer for you because the answer is yes, be prepared for it all.
I think you'll be grateful that you have it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was something else about the cold. I have to say, those little shake and bake, hand warmers. You know what I'm talking about? You get for bring those. I mean, they're really helpful. Like I remember I was climbing with a good friend of mine, Harry, and we're climbing along at one point. We're in summit night, and I come upon him, and he's fine. He's not dealing with altitude problems, but his core is cold, and his hands are freezing. And so I take my gloves off, and I reach into my bag. My hands are now freezing, and I take out I first take my hands and put them on his hands, because the best way to deal with that stuff is not with heat, it's with body temperature. So I help warm his hands up. Once I kind of got to that stage, I tore out these heat things, shook them up, stuck them in his bag, in his gloves, put his gloves back on, and that's why he made it. If we hadn't done that, he wouldn't have made it, and he may well have gotten frostbite. So those little heat packs can be really, really, really useful. And listen, this is important. I hope you understand, this is not a trip to Disneyland Paris or Disneyland Florida for that matter. You really are going somewhere that is dangerous. I mean, it's cold, and I know a lot of you guys are from England. Thea, where are you from?
I'm from the southeast, North Carolina.
Oh wow! So I mean, I was going to say you people in England have no idea what cold is. North Carolina, I mean, you guys get some cold in the winter, but not like this. This is Canada. This is Canada cold we're talking about. I mean, it is cold, and let's talk about what cold means. Cold means frostbite. Like, it means the potential for ears and fingers and toes, and let's be clear about that. That's dangerous. So it's really key that you've got the right gloves. But I'll tell you, the funny thing is, the very best way to not get frostbite is to make sure your core stays warm. Your core stays warm, then your extremities it's easier to warm your extremities. The reason that your extremities can get very cold is if your core gets cold, then your body starts calling in all the warm blood from everywhere and centering it around your heart and lungs to protect you. And then now all of a sudden you've got tingly fingers. So it's really, really key. Here's the other thing. You've been told this already. I think at this stage everybody's saying it. It's got to be said. Cotton kills. Cotton kills. You will do not take anything cotton with you except maybe earbuds. Other than that, no cotton. Like no cotton underwear, no cotton long johns, no cotton t-shirts. Cotton kills. You could be wearing simply a cotton t-shirt underneath all the other right clothes, and what happens is cotton will take the liquid off your body and it will stay wet, and then a wind will come along and all of a sudden you're hypothermic. Done. No cotton of any kind at all. I hope I've said this with enough power that you're really, really with me on this. No cotton.
Just throw a little bit more on the heat pads. You are taking some, and can you please make sure you tested them already, before you leave England, to make sure they work, and on the mountain, make sure you know how they work before you need them, how to activate them, because you have to shake them, you have to prepare them. Please make sure you're familiar with them, because what you don't want to find out is that you want to use them on summit night, and as you're getting ready to go out is when you're first using them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Most of them these days don't require shaking anymore. They just air exposure will do it for them. Still though, make sure you know which ones you've got before you go. And yeah, it is a good idea to take one out, rip it out, make sure it heats up so it hasn't gotten stale or anything like that. These days the quality control's on them pretty good. If you're in America, like Thea, I'm a big fan of Mountain Equipment REI, sorry, REI. REI is like my favorite place for going. In Canada, it's Mountain Equipment Co-op, and they have really good quality heat packs there.
Just another thing to throw in very quickly. I'm sure by this time you've all bought your sleeping bags, and I remember the first time I rented a sleeping bag, big mistake, and when I did go to buy a sleeping bag, please make sure you're buying as much as you can afford, because your sleeping bag will decide how well you sleep at night, and how well you sleep at night will dictate how strong your body is.
Yeah, getting a quality sleeping bag is an unbelievably good idea. There are a couple little sleeping bag tips I want to share with you. Never ever roll a sleeping bag into its sack. Never roll sleeping bags. Stuff them. Always stuff them. When you roll them, the stuffing inside them can get clumpy, and so you end up with like holes, where you don't have coverage. When you stuff them, it's like massaging it and constantly moving that stuff around. That's item number one. Item number 2, and this might be counterintuitive for you, but having clothes on inside your sleeping bag will cool you down. It's actually, the more naked you are in your bag, the more warm you're going to experience from your sleeping bag. And then item number 3, if I'm keeping track, get the hot water bottle I mentioned before and get it in there. Like what I was doing is over dinner, I'd pop out, put the hot water bottle in the sleeping bag, close it up, go back, have my last bit of dinner. By the time I got into my sleeping bag, it would be pretty toasty warm to begin with. Now, one of the challenges is that your sleeping bag is a really high quality sleeping bag, but you're so cold that it's hard to generate enough heat to fill the sleeping bag with heat. The hot water bottle helps with that. And one more tip, and I love this one. Get a silk liner for your sleeping bag. You can almost double the efficiency of your sleeping bag with a silk liner. It's incredible. And the other thing that's nice about the silk liners is that I don't know what other adventures you're doing when you're on your trip, but you might be staying in tents or camping where you're not 100% confident of the bed quality. Well, if you have a silk liner, then you can still sleep inside that silk liner when you're in some other strange bed. So silk liners are really, really a good idea for your sleeping bag. We've got about 5 minutes left. So any other questions?
Eric, I've got a couple.
Yeah.
One is, should we be using water purification tablets, water purification filters, or is the water once boiled okay to drink? And the other one was, going back to the hand warmers, there are at least 2 types that I know of. One is a disposable one where you shake it and snap it, and another one is one where you just snap it. It's good for a few hours, and then you have to boil it up to recharge it. Which of those should we be using?
Well, it depends on your view. If you're an environmentalist, obviously the reusable ones are probably a better idea. Logistically, that's a bit of a drag because if they're, once they're done, they're done. What I would say is, and what we've done in the past is had both. So we've had the reusable ones for earlier stages on the mountain when it's not so mission critical. But then the ones that you just simply tear out and work every time, those would be for summit night, just so you really know you've got them. And then, sorry, the first question again?
Water purification. Do we need water purification tablets? Do we need water purification filters?
They do that for you. I mean, I've never brought water purification tablets of my own. They do it for you. The one challenge is that the water can get pretty yucky tasting when they're boiling it and putting the water for purification. So, to the degree you can, you want to have bottled water as much as possible. It'll be nicer. Once they purify the water, it can be a little off on the taste. And, often if you tell them that, they'll track you down some better tasting water, or they'll track down bottled water for you. There are people on the mountain that sell it, and you guys will be on the best route for that. Because when you get, like, for example, when you get to Harumbo, honestly, it's like there's like a village up there. People are like living up there, and it's not quite a village, but it sort of feels like it. There's buildings, and there's a place where you can buy water and that sort of stuff. So I would be inclined to buy bottled water rather than drinking the purified water when I had the opportunity. Particularly in your camelback, because it's when you're walking and you're feeling a little nauseous and that kind of stuff that if the water has a little bit of an off taste, it makes it harder to drink. And the last thing you want is anything making your water harder to drink.
Just a couple of things. At some point, especially when you're in altitude zone, you'll feel like you don't want to eat. Instead of mantras, you may want to work out a mantra around the food as well. Last time, what I was doing, just celebrating the opportunity that I had food to eat at all, because you'll feel like you don't want to eat, and that can come to tell later on in the trek. So whenever it is you're feeling that you don't want to eat, force yourself and put the food down, because whatever it is they're giving you in terms of food is what your body needs in terms of energy to continue the trek. And the second tip is, so as you go higher up, it'll get colder in the mornings. So the clothes you're going to wear, certainly the layers underneath, you want to put in your sleeping bag when you go to sleep, so that when you wake up in the morning, they'll be warm and they're close to you to put on.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Make sure that they're dry. 100% dry. You want to only have dry stuff in the sleeping bag. Really great feedback. I'll take one more question, and before I do that, for those of you who are interested in climbing the mountain generally, I've put a link up to the website for our program. We take a very small number of people every year, so most of you would probably end up climbing separately from us. But if you're ever curious about coming and climbing with us as part of our See You at the Top program, then in the sidebar on the right, There's a link you can click that'll take you directly to our website where you find out a little bit about our programs. We tend to run them about once a year. We take about 20 people, so it's kind of a fun and exclusive opportunity. Any last questions from you guys in your various locations around the world?
Oh.
Thea.
Do you have any advice about preventing and treating blisters, if we should get them?
Yeah, so Thea, that's a really good point. So one of the things is your boots. Do you guys all already own your boots?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Break them in. I mean, really train in them, break them in. I know this is obvious, you're already doing it. I just got to say it because every time we run this program, somebody shows up with new boots. So, you know, do the best you can to break them in. By the end of breaking, matter of fact, my wife and I, one year we were getting ready. We had no chance to train, no training at all. I was on speaking schedule after speaking schedule. I could not. We went off to a conference in Hawaii. We were in Hawaii. We have a week to go. We've literally done no training, and we hadn't even bought our boots yet. We went out to go buy some boots, and we thought we'll get some hiking in while we're in Hawaii. We went for this volcano hike with these brand new boots, and they immediately gave us blisters. Like, oh my God! So great thing is that we bought them from REI, and REI has a 100% no questions asked satisfaction guarantee, unlimited time. So we went back and took the boots back, and then of course we got new boots and we were fine. It was a gamble though because we ended up stepping on the mountain with brand new boots. So absolutely break your boots in. Secondly, there are particular bandages that are almost like a second skin. You can get them at REI, Mountain Equipment Co-op. I don't know where else in other countries, but they're like a second skin. They're better than a Band-Aid. And I would definitely have a first aid kit of your own little travel backpack first aid kit of your own always. And inside that, I would add to it some like these little blister bandages or second skin type bandages. They are a godsend. If you get a little raw spot on the back of your ankle, for example, you just put them over top of it. Everything's fine. So definitely, Thea, that's a great question. That's an important and key thing. Hello. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I've never tried this feature of this system that we're using, but it can actually apparently leave you all with a video. So I'm going to do that, unless there's any last pressing questions or last pressing thoughts. I hope this has been helpful for you guys. I wish you the absolute best of luck on your journey. You're about to undertake something that I really regard as truly life-changing, and I want to remind you of one more thing before I move into the video. Life, like climbing the mountain, is not always a linear process. It's not always a thing where you're kind of, constantly making progress. There are going to be days on the climb, and when you guys start in 3 weeks, and for the rest of you, whenever you happen to do the climb, there are going to be days when you're climbing up, and you feel like you're making all this progress, and then you're going to arrive at the top, and then you're going to look down into a valley and go, oh my God, I have to go through that valley to get to my ultimate summit. That's life. Life is like that. And when the first time it happens to you, I want you to stand at the top of that valley, and I want you to look down through the saddle, and I want you to see that saddle and see what it represents. It represents all the times that life didn't go quite the way you expected it to, and at the time it seemed like a really big drag. At the time it seemed like you lost all the progress you'd made. At the time it seemed like you lost all kinds of money or a job or something. And then that valley ended up just being part of the journey of life, and if it wasn't for that valley, you couldn't have got to the summit. And that's going to happen all the time on the mountain, that you're going to make progress and then you're going to lose it. So I just want you to know that's happening so you're mentally prepared for it. I wish you guys all the very best of luck. I'll be really looking forward to hearing how it went. And yeah, that's it. Thanks all for tuning in. And here's a video. It's a video of a bunch of the people that did one of our very first See You at the Top adventure programs going up Kilimanjaro. And this is just some comments they made about what it was like to climb. And what's beautiful is this is not comments 6 months later. This is comments they've made, I think, at Harumbo Camp on the way down. You can still see the peak of Kili in the distance in the video. So it really is what's coming fresh out of their heart having just come off the mountain. I hope you guys enjoy the video. I really enjoyed spending this time with you this morning. Good luck with your climb, and maybe we get to meet in person one day. Good luck. Have a great week.
Thank you very much, Eric. You've been brilliant. Absolutely
yeah,
super.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you.
Really helpful. Thank you.
There we video, Eric.
The energy of the team, the
No video.
support of each other was going. The power is in yourself, and the camaraderie with to the group is. It doesn't matter if it's a male or female. It's what it is, and it is fantastic. I feel.
Seminar time was probably the best. I mean, you know, all 10 of us just gelled, got on really well. It's a new experience for me because I've never camped before. I feel really, really good that I've achieved so much. And, you know, just in a short space of time, you're surprised how much you can learn about yourself. Without a vision, I probably wouldn't have made it to the top, and that's straight up. If I didn't visualise and really want to be up there, I probably wouldn't have made it. I took everything I took from the seminar to get up to the top of Kilimanjaro. If I put that into my life, well, I can get anything. It was amazing. It was a push in yourself. It was understanding more about you, that if there's a goal there, no matter how far it is, no matter what you do, if you really want it, you can get it.
The seminar day was great preparation, not only for mountain but also.
No. It's all stopped working.
Worth it, just to take those extra steps, then I know I'm going in the right direction.
I stepped into what I visualized. Now, what I was amazed was the level of friendship and support within the team. It was amazing. The people here are really, really amazing. And all the day, we're amazing as individuals, they were amazing as team members. I was really pleased that everything that we reviewed and learned the first day before coming to Kili, I was able to use. I was able to use all the tools, different junctures of the climb. And it made a difference because what I got is that there's a fine line between achieving your goal and achieving.
Yeah, Richard told me saying, wow, I mean, absolutely fantastic feeling. I linked all my goals to getting to the top, and when I achieved that, it was just an absolute feeling of elation. I think for me it's just, life will be different because it's taken me out of my normal everyday living. It's made me look at things in a different way, and it's an absolute adventure. So the people and the friendships that I've met here, it really has been a life-changing experience. I mean, I'm a businessman, really, from a day-to-day point of view. I came here, and just the surroundings, the team was just an absolutely fantastic experience. If someone asked me to go and see it at the top, I would definitely recommend it. It's a life-changing experience, and I would recommend it for every.
The difference between a seminar like this and a seminar in the classroom is the fact here you're really living it every minute of the day, 24 hours a day, and you have so many opportunities to apply to exchange with your friends and your peers around you, and it's also, you have a lot of time with yourself. When we're doing all those different clients, I spend a lot of time thinking about what I want to do in my life, how can I use what I've been learning from the seminars while working, and it's a good way to keep fit as well. Because at the top you're going to be surrounded by amazing people. Before starting to do the climb, we had one-day seminar and focusing more on developing our mental and be physically prepared and mentally prepared to do the climb. And I really use it throughout the seminar. Having reached the top, it's for me something really amazing. It really stretched me out of my comfort zone, and I've linked so many goals to being on the top of this mountain, and now it's going to act as a very, very powerful anchor for me in my future. And I'm just so glad I've done it. So if somebody would ask me, well, is it worth doing it? I would definitely say yes, go for it. You will experience many, many things and lots of things that you wouldn't have thought about before.